Long ago, in the Neolithic Age, deep in the heart of West Africa, there lived a tribe called the Ndipaya. Hidden away from the rest of the world, their lives changed forever when they encountered a strange and powerful virus, the Progenitor. Ndipaya didn't understand science or virology, so they saw these glowing flowers as divine, maybe even magical. When ingested, the effects were both terrifying and miraculous. Most who consumed the flower didn't survive, but a rare few did, and those survivors transformed. They became stronger, smarter, and lived for far longer than any normal human being. These chosen few helped Ndipaya rise to greatness. Deep within the caverns, they built a civilization so advanced it rivaled the world's greatest wonders, long before even the pyramids were dreamed of. Unbeknownst to them, the same progenitor virus that gifted strength and wisdom could also twist nature into horror. Animals that came into contact with the flowers, whether by accident, suggestion, or simply being nearby, began to mutate. These creatures are like anything the Ndipaya had ever seen. To early mankind, they weren't just beasts, they were monsters. Demons. During these abominations, the tribes turned to ancient customs. They began sacrificial rituals, tossing victims into deep pits, hoping to appease the creatures below, keep their nightmare contained. But the monsters did not stay trapped forever. One day, the pit was breached. The mutants escaped, unleashing devastation upon the once great city. The king, the very heart of Ndipaya, was slain. Without leadership and with their secret civilization in ruins, the tribe had no choice but to flee. They retreated into the marshlands, abandoning their shining legacy to the dark. A handful of warriors remained behind, guarding the ruins, sworn to protect the world from the cursed flowers and the monsters they created, ensuring no outsider would ever awaken the ancient power sleeping in the stones. For centuries, the truth of the Ndipaya and the power of the progenitor virus remained buried in myth, hidden in the whispers of folklore and the shadows of the lost civilization. But in the 19th century, a curious British explorer named Henry Chavis ventured into the African interior. Fascinated by local legends, he documented tales of a magical flower, of a vanished kingdom, and of gods who walk like men. Though he never grasped the full truth, his records preserve echoes of the Ndipaya's forgotten past. In the 1960s, Chavis's writings resurfaced, catching the eye of a secreted group of elite European academics. Among them was Dr. James Marcus, a brilliant but controversial alien virologist. To him, the idea of mystical flowers was no superstition. It was science waiting to be uncovered. He theorized that a retrovirus could be behind the stories, responsible for the incredible transformations described in the folklore. In 1966, that theory was put to the test. Marcus joined forces with Oswald E. Spencer and Dr. Brandon Bailey to launch a 3-month expedition deep into the African wilds. Their journey led them to the mythical Garden of the Sun, and there, hidden beneath the earth in an ancient cavern, they found them, the Sonentrepi flowers still glowing in the dark. When the expedition team returned to Europe, Dr. James Marcus wasted no time diving into his research. The virus, once thought to be a myth, now under a microscope, he exposed a simple E. coli cell to a small dose of chlorine, enough to kill it instantly. Under any normal circumstances, that would have been the end. But the virus was introduced to the petri dish. Something astonishing happened. The virus repaired the cell's ruptured membrane, then mutated the genetic code of the dead organism. And then the cell, impossibly, divided. It was life after death. Reanimation. This should have been the scientific discovery of the century, perhaps the greatest since the Miller-Urey experiment revealed life's chemical origins in 1953. But instead of praise, Marcus's research was met with suspicion. The Swiss authorities, shaken by whispers of data tampering and scientific misconduct, shut the project down. No further funding was provided. The virus was too controversial, too dangerous, but Marcus was not willing to let go. He left the academic world behind and took refuge at the Spencer estate, the secluded manor owned by his former expedition partner, Oswald E. Spencer. With funding from the Spencer Foundation, Marcus continued his work, now in secret, now unchecked. While Dr. Marcus continued his secret research at the Spencer estate, Oswald E. Spencer had much grander ambitions. He and the members of his eugenics circle shared a singular dream: to reshape humanity, to build a new race of super beings guided by the vision of genetic perfection. The progenitor virus, in its raw form, was too unstable. The mortality rate was catastrophically high. If they were to control the evolution itself, they needed more time, far more resources. So, in March 1967, the Circle took a calculated step. They founded a front company, Umbrella Pharmaceuticals. On the surface, Umbrella was just another medical corporation. But behind the scenes, it was a global machine designed to commercialize the progenitor virus, modify it, and eventually weaponize it. Each Circle member established secret laboratories across the world. Spencer, now CEO, placed his most promising project at the Arkley Laboratory, hidden in the forest near his estate. Dr. Marcus, under pressure, was forced to open a nearby private university, a front for continued viral research. Edward Ashford and his son, Alexander, began work at their British estate before moving operations to a facility in the Antarctic. Lord Beardsley and Lord Henry, late to the project, joined with the labs in Gadwell and Lorry. Much of what was researched during these early years remains a mystery, but one man, Spencer, didn't wait for adherence or consensus. In October 1967, he took a decisive chilling step: human testing. He had Jessica and Lisa Trevor, a mother and daughter, abducted and brought to Arkley. Jessica died shortly after exposure. Her body rejected the virus. But Lisa changed. Her physiology began to shift. She grew stronger. Her body endured mutations. Her mind was shattered, but her body became something else entirely. Lisa Trevor would become Umbrella's first living success, and her suffering would mark the beginning of the new dark age in science. Despite their growing network of laboratories and secret experiments, Umbrella's early progress was hampered by one stubborn truth: progenitor virus could not be tamed. The source of their power, the Sonotrapi flowers, would only produce the virus under incredibly specific environmental conditions, found only in the Garden of the Sun. Attempts to grow the flowers elsewhere, even with careful cultivated seeds, all ended in failure. Flowers refused to bloom. The virus remained dormant. The key to evolution was trapped in a single place deep in a cavern few dared to enter. To overcome this, Umbrella made a bold move. In 1968, a full-scale research laboratory was built directly within the Garden of the Sun. Deep in the African wilderness, surrounded by secrecy and shadow, the facility began to extract live samples of the virus, finally allowing shipments to flow to the labs around the world. The operation was split between the founding scientists. Dr. Marcus remained in the United States, where his private university and lab were now fully operational. Dr. Brandon Bailey, ever loyal and brilliant, was placed in charge of the African lab, overseeing the progenitor production at the source. By the late 1970s, Umbrella's reach had spread across the globe. Its quiet war for biological supremacy was no longer a question of if, only how far. The T-Virus project, born from the unstable power of the progenitor, was now being pursued in dozens of underground labs. One man stood at the heart of progress: Dr. James Marcus. In 1977, Marcus made a breakthrough that would forever change the future of viral warfare. Splicing the T-Virus with genetic material from a leech, created a new prototype, one with disturbing results. Human test subjects who were once perished almost instantly now survived the infection, though barely. These victims didn't recover. They became living corpses, staggering husks of their former selves. Their bodies rotten from within, suffering gangrene, while their minds descended into a frenzy of cannibalistic hunger. What Marcus had created wasn't just a virus, it was a disease of the soul. The world would come to know it as the cannibal disease. In 1978, Oswald E. Spencer struck quietly, efficiently, and with betrayal. He shut down Marcus's university, silencing the program. Then, in a final act of treachery, Spencer handed Marcus's two most brilliant protégés, Dr. Albert Wesker and Dr. William Birkin, positions of power at the Arkley Laboratory. The price for their promotion? Fueling Marcus's research. Wesker and Birkin didn't hesitate. Young, brilliant, ambitious, they took everything Marcus had created and pushed it further. In their hands, the T-Virus became even more refined. They began splicing it with genes from the Ebola virus. Results were startling. a lower mortality rate, and even a more viable bioweapon. As Marcus faded into obscurity, his stolen work flourished in the hands of his former students. The virus was now spreading, not into the population, but into the hearts of the powerful. Umbrella was closer than ever to its goal: control life itself. As the 1980s unfolded, Umbrella's ambitions only grew darker. The T-Virus project, once focused on raw transformation, now had a new directive: control. The early mutants, mindless, rotting husks, were useful as weapons of terror, but not as a tool of precision. Umbrella wanted obedience, loyalty, and intelligence that could be commanded. In 1983, a breakthrough seemed to promise exactly that. In the icy laboratories of the Ashford estate, Dr. Alexia Ashford, a prodigy born from genetic manipulation, unveiled the t-Veronica virus. By splicing the base virus with plant DNA, Alexia created something extraordinary. A virus that did not simply consume its host, it could be shaped by will. But this wasn't something easily controlled. The virus required the perfect host, one whose brain chemistry could stabilize the mutations through sheer force of mind. Then, just as the world started to glimpse her genius, Alexia vanished. The project spiraled into obscurity, with no further progress for more than a decade. Rumors swirled. Some claimed she had died. Others believed she had injected herself with the virus and entered cryosleep to allow it to mature within her. As the T-Virus project neared completion and the Wesker project began to yield results, Oswald E. Spencer was already looking beyond. In 1988, a discovery within the body of Lisa Trevor, Umbrella's longest surviving test subject, changed everything. Hidden deep in her mutating cells was a novel retrovirus, one unlike anything Umbrella had seen before. It wasn't just stable, it was active, potent, and evolving within her body long after the initial Progenitor virus exposure. This genetic anomaly caught Spencer's attention immediately, and from it, the Golganta virus, or G-Virus, was born. Initially, the G-Virus project was presented as a rival bioweapons program, a separate line of research to the T-Virus, with its own team, its own labs, and its own funding. Between 1988 and 1991, research took place in secret at Lord Henry's laboratory complex in Lore, while the state-of-the-art nest facility was still under construction beneath Raccoon City. Among the virologists within Umbrella, the project was mocked. G-Virus was seen as too unstable, too grotesque for military use. It didn't create obedient soldiers or controllable monsters, it created things that evolved uncontrollably, adapting beyond anything scientists could predict. But that, in truth, was exactly what Spencer wanted. Unbeknownst to most of his company, the G-Virus was never truly about weapons. It was about transcendence, a new path to superhuman evolution. The T-Virus shaped ideal bodies for control. The G-Virus offered the possibility of eternal adaptation. For Spencer, it wasn't a rival to the T-Virus, it was a backup plan, a second path to godhood. One that did not rely on obedience, one that could perhaps escape death itself. Though dismissed by many within Umbrella's ranks, G-Virus held secrets far darker and more volatile than the T-Virus ever could. From the start, it was clear that this was no ordinary strain. Virologists later theorized that the G-Virus was a mutant offshoot of the Type B, a lesser-known Progenitor-based prototype. Behavior was far more in line with the original Progenitor virus than with any T-Virus derivative. It didn't just mutate the living, it could revive the dead. Like Progenitor, the G-Virus had the power to repair cellular damage, breathing twisted life back into the lifeless tissue. But it didn't stop there. It also caused explosive cell division, which each new cell a flawed, unstable clone of the original. This rapid regeneration wasn't just healing, it was evolution in overdrive, constantly rewriting the host biology. Results were monstrous. Beginning with Lisa Trevor, G-mutants began to exhibit a horrifying new trait: spontaneous development of reproductive organs. These cells didn't need a partner to reproduce, they were asexual, self-fertile. Their bodies became living factories capable of spewing offspring uncontrollably. This made the G-Virus incredibly dangerous. Every wound, every environmental trigger, every threat caused the host to mutate further, and worse still, if left unchecked, it would multiply, spreading through population centers like a virus within a virus. It was, in essence, a nightmare that bred itself. Until these traits could be understood and controlled, the G-Virus was a ticking time bomb, unpredictable, uncontainable, and utterly lethal. But to Spencer, it was still a tempting vision of the future, a force of pure evolution, immune to death, and divorced from the limitations of humanity. And to Dr. William Birkin, it became an obsession. The G-Virus would not be studied, it would be perfected, no matter the cost. T-Veronica virus wasn't just evolution, it was power bound by choice, and those who mastered it would become gods in flesh. The t-Veronica virus shrouded in mystery and its creator long gone. Umbrella's hopes of intelligent bioweapons seemed to fade. Back at the Arkley laboratory, a new strain emerged in the early 1990s, the Epsilon strain. It was the closest Umbrella had come to balancing mutations with cognition. This modified version of the T-virus produced more stable, beneficial mutations in human hosts. Subjects gained not only enhanced physical strength, but also showed signs of limited emotion and cognitive retention. Specific intelligence-related genes were targeted in the mutation process, a surgical attempt to retain the mind while evolving the body. While hosts still experienced neurological degradation, damage less severe than with earlier strains. Those infected with the Epsilon and its variants, even those suffering from the cannibal disease, began to show signs of thought. They could recognize, respond, and even speak, albeit in broken fragments. Their humanity, though fractured, still flickered beneath the surface. These mutants weren't mindless anymore. They were aware, trapped, and tormented. Some wandered aimlessly, mumbling memories of their lost lives. Others clung to simple tasks, compelled by ghost-like traces of who they once were. Umbrella didn't see tragedy, they saw potential. The Epsilon strain, the dream of a controlled thinking bioweapon, was finally within reach. Not quite human, quite monster. Something new, something designed. The line between life and death was no longer blurred. It was redrawn. By the late 1990s, after decades of research, field tests, and horrifying losses, Umbrella had done the unthinkable. They had perfected the T-virus. No longer just a weapon of chaos or a tool for monstrous transformations. The virus had been refined, studied, and twisted into something new. A key to engineered evolution. For Oswald, this wasn't just a scientific victory, it was the culmination of his eugenic dream. With the virus now under control, he turns his attention to the Wesker project. A decades-long program designed to produce a new breed of humanity, a race superior in mind and body, loyal only to his vision. From children raised in secret, genetically selected and psychologically conditioned, 13 candidates were chosen, individuals Spencer believed could survive the final stage of his plan. Each one was injected with a specialized strain of the T-virus designed not to destroy, but to enhance. Only two survived, Albert Wesker and Alex Wesker. Albert's survival came at a cost. Though empowered beyond normal human limits, the virus within him was unstable, always threatening further uncontrolled mutation. To keep it in check, Wesker became dependent on experimental medication, a constant reminder of the price of perfection. For Spencer, this was the moment he waited for. First members of his new race had been born. The human era was ending. The age of designed elite was beginning. What Spencer didn't foresee was the one flaw he could never account for: ambition. Albert and Alex had no intention of serving anyone. They had inherited the future, and they would shape it in their own way. In 1998, the G-virus had reached a dangerous tipping point. Dr. William Birkin, a brilliant virologist who had spent years perfecting the strain under Spencer's secret orders, had grown disillusioned with Umbrella, paranoid, overworked, and aware of the corporation's willingness to discard even its brightest minds. Birkin made a desperate move. He offered the G-virus to the military. In exchange for funding and protection, Birkin would deliver the most powerful bioweapon ever conceived. Before the deal could be completed, Umbrella's Secret Service, the USS, stormed Nest facility beneath Raccoon City. Birkin was shot multiple times, left to die inside the very virus he had created. He had one final card to play. With his life slipping away, Birkin injected himself with the high dose of the unfinished G-virus. The transformation was immediate. The virus, still in its raw, unpredictable state, overwhelmed his body, triggering endless mutation. His humanity was stripped away layer by layer, replaced by something beyond human, a creature driven by pain, instinct, and a relentless urge to reproduce. Birkin became the very nightmare he had sought to control, a walking engine of viral evolution. But he wasn't the only one affected. His daughter, Sherry Birkin, became an unattended victim of his legacy. In a desperate act of biological preservation, the G-mutated Birkin implanted a parasitic embryo into her, an attempt to spread his genetic line. Sherry was infected. However, her case was unique. The viral load was far lower than her father's. With the timely use of the Devil retrovirus, a countermeasure designed alongside G-virus, Sherry's transformation was halted. She retained her human form, but the virus left a permanent mark. Her body now possessed advanced regenerative capabilities, healing from wounds not ordinary humans could survive. In one generation, the G-virus has shown its full range, from the destruction of a brilliant mind to the quiet evolution of a child who might one day define the future of virology itself. By 1998, Umbrella's secret world could no longer stay hidden. In the quiet American Midwestern city of Raccoon City, decades of secrecy, experimentation, and corruption finally erupted in a catastrophic viral outbreak. Traced back to the Arkley laboratories, spread like wildfire, turning innocent people into flesh-hungry monsters. The world would come to know this tragedy as Raccoon City Destruction Incident. The city fell, fire consumed its streets. The US government, faced with a choice, erased the city in a desperate act of containment. But the survivors carried more than memories. They carried evidence, truth, and the scars of what Umbrella had done. Raccoon City was gone, but the world was finally waking up. By 2006, with Umbrella dismantled and its legacy shattered, one man stood above the ruins, Albert Wesker. A product of the Wesker project, enhanced by the T-virus and long presumed dead, Wesker had evolved into something no longer entirely human. He wasn't finished. His ambition stretched beyond Umbrella's vision of control. He sought total global evolution. Through manipulation and murder, Wesker acquired what he needed. He extracted critical knowledge of the Progenitor virus from Umbrella's board members, Carlos M. Oswell Spencer himself, very architect of Umbrella. Then, true to form, he killed both of them, cutting ties with the past and seizing the future for himself. But his plan was already in motion. Back in 2003, Wesker had stolen Umbrella's core research and delivered it to Tricell, a rising biotech conglomerate. With their resources and funding and access to the Ndipaya caverns, the very cradle of the original virus, progenitor research was revived. Using Jill's T-virus antibodies, Wesker and Tricell's scientists engineered a new strain, a culmination of all viral experimentation to date. They named it Uroboros. It was a return to the progenitor's roots, evolutionary catalyst with a brutal binary outcome. A person infected with Uroboros would either adapt and gain superhuman abilities, or reject the virus and suffer a grotesque fate. Only those with specific genetic markers had a chance of survival, and yet no human has ever successfully mutated and remained stable under Uroboros infection. The only survivors, Albert Wesker, Alex Wesker, and Neil Fisher, were already genetically altered beings, the results anomalies rather than success stories. To the rest of humanity, Uroboros meant only one thing: extinction. For Wesker, it was the final test. The world would burn, and only the strong would rise.